Hello boys and girls, welcome to Moviefiles 100 movies in 100 days, and this is part 2 of Bill Murray Week! Yes, it's part 2 of Bill Murray Week, it's week 2, and if you've seen my playthrough of Ghostbusters, which I doubt you have because my Twitch TV ain't been getting many viewers, it's going on well, and at the moment I've done a huge load of reviews. If you want to look back on my old reviews, you can do by going to fanboysanonymous.com and checking them out there, or nerdgenious.com, and you can also check on the Facebook page of nerdgenious.com as well, where it has each individual review. They've been getting a good load of views, getting loads of new subscribers, and thank you all for joining me. So let's get to the chase and go to the next Bill Murray movie that I'll be reviewing today, which is the movie Rushmore. Now Rushmore, kind of like the movie Moonrise Kingdom, is a movie where Bill Murray stars in, but he doesn't actually star in it, if that makes sense. He's not the main character. It's a 1998 comedy that was directed by Wes Anderson, who's someone that Murray collaborates a heck of a lot with, as you'll see, because I'm going to try and tackle a couple of Wes Anderson movies this week. The movie revolves around an eccentric teenager named Max Fisher and his friendship with a rich industrialist and divorcee, Herman Bloom. And it was ranked by Slant magazine as number 22 in the 100 greatest movies of the 90s. So you'll know how good this movie is. And is slated as one of the 30th coolest films ever. Now, Max Fisher, played by Jason Schwartzman, likes to start a lot of clubs. He's very eccentric, he does things his own way, but doesn't really like to take tests and get good grades, basically. And it starts with Herman Bloom, who Murray plays, doing a speech at Max's school, talking about the fact that you need to grab life by the balls, basically. That any child with a silver spoon in his mouth is not going to want things more than the kid next to him, who's there for obviously other reasons. Max becomes friends and has an interest in a school teacher by the name of Rosemary Cross, who's played by Olivia Williams. His life revolves around Rushmore Academy, a private school where he is a scholarship student and spends all his time being the chairman or being part of every single extracurricular activity at school. But he's also seen as some kind of a nerd by the rest of the kids at school. He also feuds with a headmaster of the school, Dr. Googleheim, who's literally has had enough of Max's shit. Bloom, as like most of Murray's characters, is a married man who finds his life unsatisfying. He lives with a wife who just seems to be gallivanting around and doing her own thing, including playing around with big hunks, while Murray sits there unfulfilled with spoilt children and a life that he feels that he's distanced himself from. As the film progresses, Max develops an infatuation with Miss Cross and then uses Mr. Bloom as a go-between from both of them to aid him in his relationship drama. Max is also he's a very talented director, but also a very warped one as well at the same time, putting on various plays based on television shows and movies, and just loves to take his own spin on them. As part of Max's last-ditch effort to gain Mrs. Cross's affections, he tries to build an aquarium at the school with help of Mr. Bloom's finances, and also, unaware of this, the head teacher then suspends Max for doing things that he shouldn't have been doing in the first place. Max is also estranged from his father, not telling anybody that he's a barber, and telling everyone that he's a brain surgeon and that his whole family is gifted. He does so in order to feel that he'll fit in and gain some sort of positive stigma from the other students. Max befriends a little child by the name of Dirk in hopes that his mum would end up giving him a BJ. And I'm not making this up. Instead, he ends up distancing himself from Dirk after going to a public school and telling everybody at school that Dirk's mum gave him a hand job. Yeah, Max, good move. Good move, kiddo. Piss on the only people that actually called you friend. As Max is wrapped up in his own life and trying to find ways to get back into Rushmore, Mr. Bloom develops a relationship with Miss Cross, and hence gets into a little feud with Max where they end up destroying each other's bikes, clipping the brakes in Mr. Bloom's car, and also putting bees in his hotel room after telling his estranged wife that he's seeing Mrs. Cross.
Oh, no, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
After the feud is over, Max apologises to Miss Cross in an attempt to gain her leverage and become her friend again. He then shows her a book that was notarized by her husband, a book that she then returned to the school library as it was a gift from him and she didn't want to use it as a reminder of him. Max then starts to apply himself at school, get good grades and bring himself back out of the gutter in an attempt to set himself straight and gain Mrs. Cross's affection. He then finds out from Mr. Bloom that he has broken up with Mrs. Cross due to the fact that she thinks that he's a child. He then feints a car accident in order to have Miss Cross tend to his wounds and then attempts to give her another smooch. Miss Cross finds out that he's got ketchup on his forehead and sends him a packing. Well, this kid really tries hard, doesn't he? Seriously? I would never do anything like that, but you know, he's got game. Whilst this is happening, he then gains the affections of a girl. He then gains the affections of a young lady named Margaret Yang, who he keeps avoiding as she pines for him constantly in this movie. At the end of the movie, he tries at one last attempt to get Mr. Bloom and Miss Cross together by building the aquarium that she wanted, and also by putting on a humongous play with the last of Mr. Bloom's finances. By doing so, he gets the couple back together and also gets his situation resolved where he gains a girlfriend out of Margaret Yang. The funny part though, at the end of this movie, Yang and Mr. Bloom go off to have their own dance while Miss Cross stares at Max lovingly, as though that she wanted him all along, even though she resisted his charm. That could have been something to do with the age variation due to the fact she's an older woman and he's a 15-year-old kid. But it also could have something to do with the fact that she sees a lot of her husband in him, which is what she states a lot in this movie. Now let's go to the acting. As I said before, as Mr. Bloom, Murray excels. He plays a rather interesting character of someone who's not very happy with his life, which is a common theme in Lost in Translation and also in several other movies that Murray has been in. Sort of like the aging person who attempts to deal with his situation. But this role is rather different because he's a man who has everything, yet yearns for a simpler life with simpler times. Jason Schwartzman as Max plays his role rather well. He plays this kid as a rather outcast and plays him with a rather straight face. You know, he never shows any real emotion, but always states his feelings out loud. And he's always kept at arm's length by Olivia Williamson's Mrs. Cross. She really knows how to get this kid and put him in his place rather quickly, and also plays a rather oblivious person to his feelings, even at times being really blatant about the fact that she's trying to move on with her life and is not interested in him. But other times as well, she turns to sort of reverse that and acts like she's been pining for him and like he's betrayed her trust, in a sense where she opens up to him and tells him rather sarcastically that would he like her to jerk him off, would that resolve his issue? By doing so, she's referring to Dick's mum, who he was talking about before, gave him a hand job. The film wraps itself up nicely in a neat little package. It tells a rather lovely story about people who are really confused about life. It's very humanized. It humanises these characters and gives them a rather Stanislavski feel. People who are in a very unrealistic world but playing rather real characters. So I give this film a 4 out of 5. It's a very interesting movie. It's something I'd refer to my friends, but it doesn't reach to that high 5 level due to the fact that I felt in some ways the story was rather lacking. And the ending as well, as we never understood Mrs. Cross's true feelings. Did she want Max? Didn't she want Max? Did she want Mr. Bloom or didn't she want Mr. Bloom? Who did she want to be with? I would compare this film to films like Being John Malkovich, where it takes a rather eccentric approach with telling a rather realistic story and allows you to look through the eyes of the characters with them, but also doesn't take itself rather serious. So that's much for me, guys. I will see you again on Twitch TV for my Ghostbusters playthrough. You can catch me on Fanboys Anonymous and Nerdgenious.com writing articles, and you can also catch me with my weekly vlogs as well, talking about anything from tech games to wrestling, to anything else that I just have on my mind. So if you didn't want to, stay tuned for more Bill Murray Fortnight, where tomorrow I'll be reviewing the movie Broken Flowers.